What is going on, everyone? This is Zach back here with another episode of Clutch Crew Sports. And here on today's episode, we're back with everybody's favorite game, This or That. So we're going to play that and also go around the hoop and talk about some NBA trade deadline moves we liked and moves we didn't like. So it's going to be a fun episode. Hope you guys enjoy it. And now let me introduce you to the rest of our crew.
Yo, what is going on, everybody? Eric, your ranting co-host here. Glad to be back. I had some situations that happened last week that kind of prevented me from being here, but I'm glad to be back and talk another episode. Ready to talk some defensive players in football and the trades from the NBA and all that good stuff. So let's do this.
Sorry,
What's
guys.
going on?
Yeah, here we go.
Zach is having issues.
Yeah.
What's going on, guys? This is Connor, the co-host with the most, and I'm pretty excited to talk about defensive players. I played defense when I played football, so it's definitely my side of the ball. So, and especially since this time there's a Steelers player, hint, 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 wink, wink, involved here. So I'm excited.
And what's up, guys? It's Nate here. Like Connor, I played on the defensive side when I played throughout high school and all that, so I'm looking forward to this topic too. Excited to talk about some guys that we usually don't, I mean, they're star players, but, they're not like the quarterbacks and receivers that get as much time, so it'll be fun to talk about that.
Yeah, definitely, man. And we also got NBA trade deadline, all those NBA trades. We'll talk about the ones that we liked, didn't like. So that should be fun too. But yeah, as we said before, This or That is back. So the way this works, if you've never heard us play this game before, is we present two similar caliber type of players, two Pro Bowlers sort of deal with each other. And it's simple as that. This or that. Which one do you prefer if you were making a team? Which player you think is better right now? Not necessarily what players had the better career, but what player you would take moving forward. And for this specific edition, I tried to do a lot of guys that are in the same division, so interdivisional matchups. So that makes things so much more interesting when you see like Bears and Packers players up against each other. Steelers Browns, you will see that one first. So that makes things all the more exciting. So hopefully you guys enjoy, and let us know in the comments on Twitter if you agree or disagree with our takes. But let's go ahead and just get this thing started, guys. So this first set of guys is going to be linebackers and edge guys. I kind of just combined them all. But our first scenario for players to take, we have Myles Garrett for Cleveland and TJ Watt for Pittsburgh. So I'll say mine first, and then Eric, Connor, Nate can follow. I'm going to go Team Garrett.
Team Watt.
Team Myles Garrett. Just kidding, TJ Watt.
And Team Garrett.
Okay, so we're split down the middle. Two of us picked Garrett. Two of us picked Watt. I'll let Connor start with his reason, obviously, for why he picked TJ Watt out of this pair.
I mean, aside from my personal bias being a Steelers fan, I think it's just pretty obvious to me that TJ Watt can do a whole lot more than Myles Garrett can do. Myles Garrett's pretty much a pass rusher, and that's it. But TJ Watt, he can pass rush, he can cover, he can stop the run, he can do anything for you. Myles Garrett's decent against the run too, but TJ Watt is just a more dynamic player than Myles Garrett is. I mean, you're not going to see Myles Garrett getting interceptions or anything like that. Both force a high amount of fumbles. And I think the other thing for me that elevates TJ Watt over Myles Garrett is that although he hasn't won it yet, which I'm kind of upset that he didn't win it this year. Maybe last year he didn't have as much of a case, but this year I think he should have gotten it. But he is a two-time runner-up for Defensive Player of the Year. And Myles Garrett, although he's been in the conversation, has never really kind of been close to tasting that award, unlike TJ Watt has. So seems pretty easy for me.
All right. So Nate, let's hear from you. You picked Team Garrett along with me. Why'd you go with Garrett?
Yeah, so I agree with Connor here. He's not, as versatile of a player as TJ Watt, kind of more, by virtue of him being like a pure like defensive end, more of like a straight up pass rusher. But I gave him the edge just because I think he's a little bit more of like, just as a pass rusher, I think he has a little bit more to offer, just in terms of just his size, strength, all that stuff, and just in terms of playing in Cleveland, they've gotten better as a roster, obviously last year, but I think he's played under more like defensive coordinators and hasn't had a whole lot of talent, around him as much as Steelers had like Bud Dupree and some of those guys help. Now I think if these offseason moves kind of work out right for Cleveland with the guys they brought in, he could definitely like maybe put up some better numbers and kind of be more of like a force as a just pure pass rusher with some other help on the other side of the line there.
Yeah, that's Nate basically said all the reasons why I picked Garrett. Just like I feel like he does play on like a weaker line, and that's a benefit for him. Whereas Watt has all those guys on that line helping him out. Can't really get double teamed when you have all those guys on that defensive front. But moving on now, we have another divisional rivalry here. So Bears and Packers fans, don't agree on much. And this is another thing I'm sure that they don't agree on. But who would you guys take out of this pair of players? We have Khalil Mack for the Bears and Za'Darius Smith for the Packers. I'm going to go Team Smith.
Team Smith.
I'm also going to go Team Smith.
I'll be different here and go Team Mack.
All right. Glad we had one different opinion on this one. But yeah, I went with Smith just because he's really had a lot of production that seems to go underrated. I think it was like 2 years ago he missed out on the Pro Bowl, but it was one of the biggest Pro Bowl snubs because I guess just there was a lot of big names in the NFC, big name pass rushers. And when it comes to Pro Bowls, I don't think you can really take them with a grain of salt because it's all a popularity contest, and age is a big factor in it. They give the older guys the nod a lot of times, but even still, I think Mack to me has never been the same player after leaving Oakland. Like, he's been good with Chicago, but also at the same time, they have a great defense around him, and it's never been just him. It always feels like on Chicago's defense, there's like Leonard Floyd, Roquan Smith, like just all these other guys are on the defense that were making plays as well. Whereas with the Packers, I feel like, yeah, they have a couple good pieces on defense, but it's really not that good. But Za'Darius Smith is like a scary force, and definitely like when I watch him play, he's sneaky. Like and he had production with I think Baltimore before he went to Green Bay, so it's been a very good signing for them. And I think right now too, Max had some injuries, I believe, so I would lean Smith, but it's still pretty close. Nate, why are you going with Mack instead?
I just think that Mack's track record is a little bit longer, is why I'm giving him the edge. I think Smith definitely has put up better production the last couple of years. I think I agree with you. Like aside from Mack's first year in Chicago, his production has kind of been dropped off since he left Oakland. But I just think that over the course of his career, he's had more like double-digit sack seasons, and just like we kind of know he's a freak, and it doesn't always show with the stats, but I think talent-wise he's been there his whole career. Whereas with Smith, it's like if you look at his Baltimore stats, it's like he only had like I think his best season in Baltimore was like 5 sacks or 8 sacks or something like that, and then he's broke out the last couple of years. But I think for me to give him the edge, I just like to see him come back this year and put up another big season and all that. He's definitely one of the best rushers in the league. I think both these guys are right up there, but I'm just going to give Mack the slight edge here because he's been doing it for a little bit longer.
Yeah, that's understandable. I definitely use that logic when it comes to some other people as well. Like if you've been doing it for longer, you're more proven, even if you're a couple years older. But next up here, before we finish the defensive line slash linebacker part of the defensive this or that, we have an AFC South matchup here between these two linebackers. So they do different roles, obviously, but still linebackers. And we have Darius Leonard from the Colts and Miles Jack from the Jaguars. So obviously, the bias and all, I'm going to take Miles Jack.
Miles Jack.
I'm Team Darius Leonard.
I'm Team Leonard as well.
All right, so we got a 2-2 split. Not surprised the two Jags fans took Miles Jack. So, Eric, what about Miles Jack has really impressed you the most, and what made you pick him over Leonard, who's also very good?
Well, the reason why I picked Miles Jack, a lot of people may not know this because obviously the Jags don't get many primetime games, but Miles Jack, he kind of struggled early on in his career, but a big reason for that was because his first few seasons, they really had him playing out of position. Like, I remember when he first started with Gus Bradley, he had him playing some weird, like, auto linebacker, like a strong side linebacker that he called an auto or a lotto or some garbage like that. But it was a position that was not a good fit for him at all. And then after that, they moved him to middle linebacker. They wanted him to like captain the defense and be a middle linebacker, but that's not really his strength either. And then last year, they finally got it right. They put him at weak side linebacker, which is where he was meant to play. And he thrived last year because of that. And we really got to finally see Miles Jack like play to his full potential. Now, if this was a season or two ago, even as a Jags fan, I would have picked Darius Leonard. But his first couple of seasons, I mean, he was elite, and obviously he's still really good. But I noticed this past season, I saw him get burnt in coverage more than usual. He wasn't as effective as usual. Obviously, he's still got a lot of tackles and everything, and he's all over the field. But I felt like Leonard had a little bit of a slip in his production last season, whereas Miles Jack has now like elevated and reached more of his potential. So if I'm starting a franchise today, I would pick Miles Jack. I think he's only going to get better.
Yeah, man, I definitely you hit it on the nail on the head there. Like Leonard last year, to me, he started out the season real slow. He got better as the season went along, but I think compared to his other years, he still was a little bit down. Whereas, like you said with Jack, they finally put him at his natural position. He really thrived and was doing so much stuff. I still would like to see the penalties cut down a little bit. He gets some penalties every now and then, but another plus for Jack is this year he had his best season without Calais Campbell, without Yannick Ngakoue, no Ramsey. Nobody else really of notable stature on the defense, but he was still producing, and that to me spoke volumes as well. That defense was pitiful, but he was the lone bright spot and really kept us in games single-handedly on the defense. So that's why I'm going Jack. But Connor, why are you picking Leonard instead?
Well, first of all, with Darius Leonard, I guess more so with Miles Jack. To me, the sign of a great linebacker, because this doesn't quite apply to edge rushers anymore since that's kind of become like its own special position. But like for a good linebacker, you should be able to, I know he's been playing out of position, but I'm not saying that you should do fantastic when you're not playing at your natural like weak side linebacker, but you should still be able to do good anywhere on the field if you're a really good linebacker. I know Darius Leonard hasn't had to play out of position because he's been the main guy since day one. But
and his coaches were smart and knew how to put him where he probably plays
right.
Gus Bradley.
Exactly. But to me, it's just like I think that still does hurt him in my opinion. Like how kind of obviously he was still really good, but the struggles that he had early in his career still kind of put him down for me. And also, I just look at what Darius Leonard's been able to accomplish compared to Miles Jack, seeing as how Darius Leonard has played 30 less games, so like 2 full seasons less than Miles Jack, and he still outranks him in pretty much every stat category. Like Miles Jack has him beat like by 5 on tackles or something, but like other than that, it's all Darius Leonard. And he's really the heart and soul of that Colts defense. Like I know, the Colts have a lot of other players on that. It's a good defense, but the Jaguars had a lot of good players too for a long time. Back in 2017, that defense was the best in the league. With Calais Campbell and Miles Jack, and of course in the secondary you had Ramsey and AJ Boye. So, both players have played on good teams. So I just put it more like I said, Darius Leonard's accomplished more. I think he's a better player. I think he's proved it that he's a better player. And, I don't know. Darius Leonard's also still young. Like I said, he's got 2 full seasons less under him than Miles Jack. So there's only room if Darius Leonard's already an all-pro linebacker, and he was when he was a rookie, pretty much. This guy could turn into one of the all-time greats.
We'll agree to disagree. Move on.
Well, Miles Jack is 25. It's not like he's like 35 or something.
No, for sure. No, I'm not saying Miles Jack is old, but like I said, Darius Leonard, like Miles Jack, he's only just now getting to that point where, okay, now we need to see it for another season. Yeah. But Darius Leonard's already had that. Like he's already proved he can do it for multiple seasons.
I'll say this. I'm still waiting for the day they put Miles Jack in at running back because he used to do that at UCLA also. He was like a middle position guy.
One of those
I'm still waiting. They've never once put him at running back. I'm like, come on. Like, they got to do this eventually.
Come on, man.
Maybe they should do that, but then pull like a Dontari Poe and throw a pass or something.
Yeah. Get everybody off guard. But we'll see. We'll see if that ever happens. Moving on now, we're going to talk about the cornerback position specifically. So these 3 pairs are all great corners in the NFL, different skills and attributes with each other. But this first pairing, we have, keeping the theme of divisional matchups, we have Stephon Gilmore for the Patriots and Tre'Davious White for the Buffalo Bills. So I'm going to go Team White.
Team White.
As much as it pains me, I have to go Team Stephon Gilmore.
Yeah, as a Pats fan, I hate to say this, but Team White.
Wow. Okay. I guess that is surprising. But hey, no bias. I can respect that. So let's hear from Nate, I guess, just to start out. Why are you picking White, Nate, being a Pats fan and all?
Yeah, I mean, just kind of like, this is more like who would you want, if you're building a team right now. I would take White just because he's a little bit younger. Not that Gilmore is old and run down, but it's like, with corners, it's like, they hit that 1 year and it's just all kind of downhill from there. It's like they have a very fast drop off. I'm not saying Gilmore is going to, fall off this season, but I just think that Trey White's definitely like at least one of the top 3 guys in the game, in my opinion, and he's probably going to keep getting better because he's so young and all that. Whereas Gilmore, I think, was the best for a solid 2-3 years there, and then he kind of took a little bit of a step back. I think J.C. Jackson's a better option on the Pats right now. So, we'll see what they're even talking about, like trading him maybe. So, see what happens there. But I think White is who I would go with right now.
Yeah, and the thing I'll throw in there to add in for Whiteside before we move over to Gilmore is, I think something also too, a criticism you can say about Gilmore is maybe like he's only really had great success with the Belichick defense, and like how they always say it's like is it the scheme or the player? Like obviously he's really talented and all, but like he's still I still that comes up in my mind when I think of Gilmore. I do think a little bit of like the Bill Belichick defensive scheme, like, and all the good defenders they had for so many years on that team. Like it wasn't just him, obviously. So
right.
if he had gone to like a random team and put up real good numbers, like then maybe I'd be more on the Gilmore side. But for White, being on his former team and having a lot more success too, the Bills, I think that's more impressive. But Connor, why are you going to make the case for Gilmore?
Well, I guess the first point, opposite to what you said, you talked about Stephon Gilmore played on, the Patriots had really good other players. You got to remember, too, when he played on the Bills, that was one of the worst defenses in the NFL when he played on the Bills. Or at least maybe not one of the worst defenses in whole, but one of the worst secondaries in the NFL. Like the Bills had major problems in the secondary when he was there. It wasn't until really that they brought in Tre'Davious White that I got better. They brought in White, and then they brought in like Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer to play safety. So I don't knock him too much for his time in Buffalo. There was obviously a reason why they traded him, but Bill Belichick, he does have an ability to bring out the best in everyone, and he brought out the best in Stephon Gilmore. Another thing that I equate to Stephon Gilmore is that he actually, unlike Tre'Davious White, on the majority of the occasions, Stephon Gilmore will shadow the team's best receiver, whereas Tre'Davious White he does shadow occasionally, but for the most part, he kind of pulls like a Richard Sherman type thing where he stays on one side of the field a lot of the time. And it's kind of one of the reasons why his target count is so low, because a lot of times teams, if he's not shadowing a big receiver, then, they're just going to put like their third string receiver on him and just not even care. They're like, okay, well, he'll cover that person, like this scrub over here. So we'll take and put Devontae Adams or, Tyreek Hill or whoever and put them over here on the other corner, like Levi Wallace, since Tre'Davious White's not going to follow them. But the other thing with Tre'Davious White, too, is just maybe it's just me because I've watched a lot of Bills games, but I have seen him get burned so many times. Like, over the course of watching the Bills this year, I can't tell you how many times I saw a big play or a touchdown. I was like, oh, that was a blown coverage by Tre'Davious White again. Tre'Davious White had to get bailed out by the safety barely because he blew a coverage again. So I don't know. Maybe it's just me because I've watched all these Bills games, but I feel like he gets burned way more than almost any corner I've seen, except for maybe another person later on this list. So,
yeah.
But yeah, that's why. And like I said, Gilmore, he's a former Defensive Player of the Year too. It's just, maybe he is starting to go on that downward trend, but he's not there yet. So I'm sticking with Stephon Gilmore.
Yeah, and speaking of those next people, we have another matchup. Now, this is the only one that's not really. I guess we have another one that's not same division, but the AFC East has so many corners that Xavier Howard here, I had to put him in a matchup against Jalen Ramsey. So,
Jalen Ramsey.
So we have Jalen Ramsey, obviously, and Xavier Howard. So I'm going to go Team Ramsey.
Oh, God. Team Ramsey.
Yeah, I have to go Team Ramsey.
Yeah, I can't even be different here on this one. I got to go Ramsey, too.
All right, so this is our first unanimous. I believe this is the first unanimous one matchup here. So I'll say something quick about Ramsey, and then I'll let Nate speak about him. But I've seen him play in person, and I've seen him up close, and he is like the prototypical, like, if you were to design a corner, like his physicals are what you would want in a corner, like his size and everything. Not saying the other guys aren't good at what they do, but he just has that, you can't teach that, you can't teach size and all that stuff, which he has. And then to also add on to it, he has it just seems like he really improved this last year. Last year or 2 years ago, he had the trade and it was kind of a bad season for him, but he really played well last year, and it was on a great defense, but still, he consistently did a good job, and he's
kept Devontae Adams in check.
He kept Devontae Adams in check. He's a hard hitter. Really, I don't like it now, but he's a great trash talker as well. Like, he gets in people's heads. That's like, it's underrated, but it's actually like, it affects him, because I know that one time he said something to AJ Green and caused him to like get ejected in a fight. So like he gets in people's heads, and he's shut down DeAndre Hopkins a lot of times also, and that's another thing too. DeAndre Hopkins, top 2-3 receiver in the NFL, and he's consistently shut him down in Arizona and Houston. So, yeah, it pains me to say it, but he is elite. So I'm gonna have to go Ramsey. Nate, anything I said there that I missed? What else about Ramsey do you want to add on before we move forward?
I mean, you touched on most of it. I think he was shut down with the Jags for those couple of years, and like you said, he had a little bit of a down season after they traded him. But I think he bounced back last year, and he doesn't show any signs of slowing down. So I think he's probably talent-wise, I'd say best corner in the game right now.
He bounced back from trying to start a fight with Marcus Peters and having to get carried off the
field.
Never forget they held him back, or he would.
Yeah,
he would.
I'll never forget
Marcus
that.
Peters.
I'll never forget that because that was the episode that Eric and I did, the one episode without Zach, and we covered that on that episode.
We did.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, and then the last pair of corners we have on this list. Jaire Alexander for the Green Bay Packers and Marshawn Lattimore for the Saints. So 2 NFC corners, roughly the same age, obviously. Wear the same number 2, actually. I just saw that now. Both wear 23. But this is a real tough one. But I'm gonna go Team Lattimore.
Team Jaire.
Oh, opposite to Zach. Aside from the Steelers players not included, this was actually the easiest decision for me to go Team Jaire.
Yeah, I'm Team Jaire as well.
Oh wow, okay. So I'll start off. Like I said, I was going back and forth on this one, for what I wanted to pick, but I know he's got some felony gun charges or something like that maybe coming. So that's scary, but assuming, with these NFL players, it seems like if you're good, the legal system, tends to shuffle these under the rug. So we'll see if that happens. I don't know. I don't know what'll happen, but I did hear that story. I don't know if that factored in any of y'all's pick, but
no.
With Lattimore, okay. But with Lattimore, I think he's really, really good. He stands out to me watching Saints games, not too much. I don't know what to say other than the fact that I've watched both of them, and from what I watched, Lattimore seems to do a little bit better, but it's close. But you guys seem to make this more for Alexander. So I guess Eric, I'll start with you. Why'd you pick Alexander?
Yeah, well, this one was tough for me too, but I guess the reason why I'm going with Jaire, and kind of a reason why I also went with Za'Darius Smith. I mean, those 2 guys are the 2 main guys on that defense, whereas with Marshawn Lattimore, he has a lot of other help around him, kind of like what you guys talked about with TJ Watt and the Steelers, and we've talked about how with Leonard and the Colts and all that stuff. That's kind of the reason why I went with him here. I feel like Jaire has shined. But I mean, they're both really good. This one was really tough for me as well. I kind of had the harder time. Their stats are pretty similar. Like you said, they're about the same age. But for me, it's more of just a slight edge to Jaire. But I'm kind of curious with Connor, because Connor said that this was the easiest decision for him. So I kind of want to hear what Connor has to say on this.
Yeah, let's hear it.
I mean, it might be pretty anticlimactic, but I did mention when I was talking about Tre'Davious White that I've seen one corner get burned more than Tre'Davious White, and that was Marshawn Lattimore. Watching all the Saints games that I watched, good Lord, he could not cover anything last season from what I saw when I watched him. So I don't know, maybe it was just the games I watched, but he looked like he was, headed for maybe New Orleans was going to trade him or something when I was watching him. I was like, man, what is this guy doing? Isn't he supposed to be one of the best corners in the league? And it just seems like every time there's a catch, it's his receiver that's getting the catch. So I don't know. That's why I picked Jaire. And also, like you guys said, he plays on a worse team than Lattimore. So
yeah. Moving on now, we'll go to the final group of 3. We've got safeties. This first pairing is some AFC West rivals. Justin Simmons or Tyrann Mathieu. I'm going to go Team Mathieu.
Team Mathieu.
This was a tough one for me, but I'm going to go with Team Simmons.
And Team Mathieu.
All right, so 3 Matthews and 1 Simmons. Nate, I guess I'll just ask you first. Why did you pick Mathieu instead of Simmons?
I'm just a fan of Matthews because, I mean, Super Bowl notwithstanding, I think he's one of the most like versatile like defensive players out there. I mean, he can really be lined up, safety. He plays a little bit of corner, like nickel, slot. Plays in linebacker sometimes, rushes the passer a little bit. Kind of does what anything on the field. He's got the speed, just overall athleticism, and I think I haven't watched enough of Simmons. I just haven't seen a lot of Broncos games in the last year to know, for sure what he's capable of. I know he's one of the best out there right now, but I think Mathieu, even though he's getting a little bit older, I think just that versatility is like, there's not very many guys who've been able to do all the stuff that he does and he's done it for multiple teams and, defensive schemes and everything. He just keeps producing everywhere he goes. So I think even back to like in college at LSU, like he's just a special athlete there. So that's who I would take if I was starting a team here.
All right, and then Connor, you went with Simmons, the only one going to Simmons. So I know you said it was tough, but why did you pick him?
Yeah, I picked Justin Simmons just because the thing for Tyrann Mathieu for me is I feel like maybe he's lost part of his game in a way from like when I used to watch him when he was on the Cardinals. Like, it feels like he used to be able to do everything from cover and tackle and blah blah. I'm not saying he's a bad tackler or anything, but I don't know. I feel like he's kind of gone back into a role where more so the only thing he's good for is interceptions, which that's obviously a good thing, but I don't know. I feel like Justin Simmons just does more to help the defense than Tyrann Mathieu does. Like, I feel like, if we're taking the value of a player, I feel like Justin Simmons is more valuable to the Broncos than Tyrann Mathieu is valuable to the Chiefs. And because both these defenses are not fantastic, it's not like either one of them plays on a really good defense. But I just feel like the Chiefs would be okay without Tyrann Mathieu. Whereas I feel like the Broncos, like they would be losing a big portion, like a big gap in their defense without Justin Simmons. Like I said, I feel like he just does a little bit more of the other things, whereas Tyrann Mathieu seems like he's kind of gone back into, he's a great cover guy, but maybe he's lost a step in other parts of the games, whereas I feel like Simmons is still, at the top of his game in every portion of, being a safety, because you're asked to do a lot as a safety. You're not just a cover person like a cornerback. So I feel like he's got the all-around game.
Yep, and then staying out west, we have another pair of safeties here. Going to the NFC now, we have Jamal Adams for the Seahawks and Budda Baker on the Cardinals. So Seahawks and Cardinals here. I'm going to go Team Baker.
Team Baker.
Team Baker.
Team Baker.
All right, cool. So we have another another unanimous one, and I want to talk about this one for a second because I have some things to say about Jamal Adams.
Uh-oh.
He is the ultimate like boomer bust type of safety. I feel like he's also like a terrible safety and just like a good defensive player.
That's a weird analogy right there. A terrible safety, but a good defensive player.
Because as a safety, I know you're saying they're asked to do a lot, but coverage-wise, he's, lower tier. Whereas I think Budda Baker's a lot better in that aspect. And their careers are totally trending in opposite directions. Jamal Adams started off his rookie year. He was amazing. Everyone was talking about Jamal Adams. Budda Baker, the first couple of years, kind of went unrecognized. And then, like, for the past 2 years now, it's completely flip-flopped, whereas, like, Budda Baker's starting to do a lot better now. Jamal Adams doing a lot worse. And as far as, like, as far as him, like, obviously he was traded for 2 first-round picks. That was way over compensated by the Seahawks there. The Jets, they got a steal there, getting 2 first-round picks for him because what did he do for the Jets? The Jets were never in the playoff contention in his time with New York. I know they got worse when he left, but that was because of a lot of other reasons. And he just whined and quit his way out of there, kind of like Ramsey did at the end. Like, it was just left me in a bad. He just left a bad taste in my mouth, and people call him Blitz Boy because that's all he seems to do well. I don't know if any of y'all have ever heard that nickname, but they call him Blitz Boy because he just blitzes. And it seems also like he plays, as far as what I was saying about earlier, bad safety. Like, it seems like a lot of times he goes rogue on the field and like does whatever he wants. So that's why people have been really hyping Jamal Adams up the last couple of years and stuff, and I've just never been a one. I've always valued a lot of other safeties on my board ahead of him, so I do like Budda Baker quite a bit. He's not the best safety, but I think he's just better than Adams because Adams is interesting. He's just I don't want to say anything more, but yeah, Team Baker all the way there, and then we will round this out with 2 guys, some college rivalry here with like Florida State, Alabama players. I think they grew up around each other. They've always been tied to each other. And that's going to be Minkah Fitzpatrick and Derwin James. Minkah was with the Dolphins. Obviously, he's been traded since then, since he was drafted to the Steelers. So I'll start things off, guys. I'm going to go Team Minkah.
Team Minkah.
Obviously, Team Minkah.
Team Minkah.
All right, so I'll let Connor talk about this one as we have our third runaway of the night.
Yeah, I mean, Minkah Fitzpatrick, it's just, I don't know, it's been a long time since I've seen a player that, like, maybe I shouldn't say the draft because obviously TJ Watt was in the draft, but it's been a long time since I've seen the Steelers make a trade for someone that, like, came in and just had an immediate impact and was, like, in my opinion, a big win for the Steelers because it seems like, I don't know, the Steelers just don't do a lot of trading, it seems like. They traded up to get Devin Bush, but obviously that was, we're still yet to see if that's to work out or not because Bush, he only has 1 full season under his belt. And, last season he tore his ACL, so he sat out most of the year. But this one, I think it was worth it for the Steelers to trade away that first-round pick because Minkah Fitzpatrick, they desperately needed safety help before he came there. They seemed like every year, the Steelers were complaining about their secondary, and mainly it was because I remember watching those games when we had like Mike Mitchell and Sean Davis back there in the secondary, and they were just getting burned over and over again. Like, Joe Hayden, and I can't remember. We've had such a roulette of corners. I guess it was Artie Burns at the time. They were doing everything they could to stop the receivers from getting further back, and then you're supposed to be okay once they get past a certain point. The safeties are supposed to help out. And then as soon as that would happen, like Mike Mitchell would let the, whoever run for a touchdown at that point, even though they were covered before that. So he has a big impact. He gets a lot of interceptions. He's a big tackler. He does a lot to help the defense. He's just a great all-around player. I think it was definitely worth it for the Steelers to get him, and I hope he stays in the black and gold for many years to come.
Black and gold or black and yellow?
It's actually black and yellow because I've been getting so thrown off because like every time I watch something where a team wears black and yellow, maybe it's because I've been watching these App State basketball games and the commentators keep saying black and gold. I'm like, our colors are not black and gold. It's black and yellow. Shut up. It's just like in my head now.
Yeah, I gotcha. So that's going to round things out, guys. Like I said, let us know on Twitter. We'll put the links in the description if you're not following us already, but let us know if you agree, disagree with these assessments. Obviously, if you're a fan of one of these teams, you're gonna have strong feelings towards one guy and respect, but also you always think your guy's better, and we basically all did that except for Nate with the Trey White over Gilmore pick. But moving on now, we'll go talk about some NBA news before we wrap this episode up. So we had the trade deadline last week, and there was a lot of trades that happened. So we're not going to necessarily talk about all of them, but we're just going to be giving our thoughts on one trade that we like and one that we dislike. So I will start things off with let's hear the good news before the bad news this time. So usually I'm the type that says give me the bad news first, but we'll do positive first. So a trade that I really like happens to involve one of my favorite teams here, the Portland Trail Blazers. They traded for Norman Powell, and they gave up in return Gary Trent Jr. and Rodney Hood. And I think this is an A+ move by Neil Olshey, the general manager for the Blazers. You had a situation with Rodney Hood where he was basically injured all of last season, and then this year he's played, but he hasn't played well at all. And so getting Rodney Hood off the team, as much as I like him, it was still a good move to deal him out to a team because he wasn't really going to get many minutes moving forward. So you got rid of him. Gary Trent Jr. obviously is the reason the trade went through. He was the main piece that they gave up. But I'm a fan of Gary Trent Jr. I think he's really good. The problem is just the position he plays in and the team he's on. If he was on any other team, they probably would not be trading him and they would look to re-sign him. But what I was afraid of was we keep Gary Trent Jr., and then in the offseason, some team way overspends him and they have his bird rights, but like then you're going to have to really overpay to keep him. And he's like a sixth man coming off the bench because he's not a starter in front of CJ, obviously. So it was a good player, but just not a good fit with the Blazers moving forward. You didn't want to have that long term. You didn't want to have all your cap space at one position on the court. But then they were able to get Norman Powell, who he can play shooting guard, but he's mainly a small forward, and he's been averaging quietly. I didn't know much about him before the trade, to be honest, but he's having a really, really good year with Toronto, and he's had good years too. Like it was a piece, I think, that that Toronto, like, they was getting interest from a lot of teams around the league, and I'm glad the Blazers were the team that got him. But he's going to have a tremendous impact. I think he'll eventually take over as the starter there. And even in the meantime, like, he's still providing instantly for the Blazers points and offense. And he is a better defender, I think, as well, which is something they needed. So I'm a big fan of this for Portland. They got rid of some stuff that they needed to get rid of because otherwise it would have been for nothing if they let Gary Trent walk. And now they got, I think, a better player and someone that's going to fit the team a lot better. So big fan of Powell, and I'm excited to see him as the year goes on. Eric, tell us about a move that you liked.
Yeah, my biggest win during the trade deadline, in my opinion, was the Boston Celtics getting Evan Fournier. The Celtics have kind of struggled this year, but I know they feel like they can still contend, but obviously what they were doing wasn't working, and so they needed to get somebody else in that could, hopefully make a difference for them. And I think Evan Fournier is going to be a great addition for them. I mean, he's averaging almost 20 points a game, which is pretty solid, and it's not like somebody like Russell Westbrook or something where it's on like 8 of 21 shooting or something like that most of the time. Like, most of the time his shooting percentage is pretty good, so he's hitting his shots consistently. Now, he did do horrible in his first game as a Celtic, unfortunately, but obviously it's just one game. It's his first game with a new team, new environment. Like, he'll adjust for sure, and he's not going to play like that on a nightly basis, obviously. And what I also really liked about it for the Celtics was just that they didn't have to give up anything in return really to get him. They gave up a player that they weren't going to use. They gave up 2 second-round picks, which basically translates to a ham sandwich and a taco. So they really gave up nothing to get a 20-point per game scorer. So I mean, in my opinion, that's a pretty big win for them. So I'm a big fan of that move for Boston.
Yeah, it pains me, but Connor,
Zach's going to be getting pained a lot
Yeah, I know. I know how you feel
and
now.
not from the Blazers either.
No, the Blazers are good, but Connor, tell us about a trade win that you liked.
Yeah, so I think the biggest trade win for me that I saw, well, I think that was really good. Sorry, something that's in my throat. But it was Lou Williams got traded to the Atlanta Hawks, made a deal for Lou Williams. They got him and they got a second round pick for giving up Rajon Rondo going back to LA, but this time with the Clippers, not the Lakers. But I think this is a really good move for the Hawks because the Hawks are obviously they're in the thick of it in the East when it comes to the playoff race. I think it's something like the top, from like seed 4 to from number 4 to number 9, they're separated by like 2 games. So it's very, very close. The Hawks currently do have a playoff spot. They're number 6 right now. Behind the Knicks and the Hornets in that range of teams, like within 2 games. So, and Rajon Rondo just really wasn't doing anything for them. I mean, he was averaging something like 4 points a game this year. He's just he's just kind of past his prime. He's not really going to be a big impact on a team anymore. Like maybe he'll come off the bench and he can do a little something for you, but other than that, he's not going to be a big impact for your team. Whereas I think Lou Williams is a much better option. He's obviously not going to be a big time star because he's also getting up there in age too, but he's definitely an upgrade over Rajon Rondo. Gives them another option there at the point guard position to do better things when they're out on the court, and also a second round pick. Like obviously a lot of second round picks don't really turn out to be much sometimes, but you never know. So it's always good to get a draft pick thrown in there, especially when all they were giving up was Rajon Rondo. So I'm not sure why the Clippers felt the need to do this. I'm not sure how Rajon Rondo benefits them at all, but I definitely think it benefits the Hawks. And, any sort of edge you can get right now in the East is important for these teams. So
yeah. I guess they're hoping for playoff Rondo is what they're hoping for, probably.
I guess because playoff P doesn't like to show up, so they need someone else there. But yeah, the Hawks definitely need help because it's a dogfight. I mean, I hope the Hornets can stay in it, but maybe the Hornets should have done something like this after losing LaMelo Ball for the rest of the year. So I think the Hawks made a good move going out and getting this.
Yeah, and now we're going to transition to the moves we didn't like. So I will start that off. I didn't want to talk about the Magic stuff. I just didn't want to do it. But another one of these moves that I kind of scratched my head out a little bit, really with the fit. And that's going to be Victor Oladipo traded to Miami. Now, if you're asking me, I think this is losers all around because I heard a report that Houston could have just had Karis LeVert in that James Harden trade, but instead they wanted Victor Oladipo from Indiana. So Karis LeVert went to Indiana, and then Oladipo went to Houston. And it was just not a good time there for him in Houston. And he basically asked to be traded, I think, and they wanted to get rid of him because they knew they wouldn't re-sign him. So it was just a bad situation for Houston. And then in return, they get like nothing from Miami. So as far as like Miami giving up assets, that's not a loss for Miami. They didn't really give up much, but it's just the player on the team part I think is not very good because Miami is actually getting back a lot of players from injury. So they're going to be a much healthier team. And I just don't see how Oladipo is going to fit into their current rotation. Like, I think he's going to kind of be forced to play minutes because they have him. But I don't think he improves their team at all. And I don't think this, makes them a contender in the East. And also, if you're asking me right now, I don't think he re-signs with them either. So I think it's just like a rental sort of thing. They tried to make a splash. I think they would have been better served if they made a bigger splash for somebody else. But it's just I don't see how he fits well with Miami personally. Could be wrong, but I just don't like the new team he's on, and I don't think he's going to stay with Miami. So Just going to be one of those, like, when you look back and see Victor Oladipo played half a season for Miami in 2021. Oh, I forgot about that. I think that's how it's going to be seen in history's eyes. But that's my take. Eric, tell us about a trade loss that you think happened.
Yeah, and I know, obviously Zach knows this, and I know Zach agrees with this, but he's not going to like to hear it. But I kind of broke the rules a little bit here, and for me, I have a loss here for the Magic with all of their trades. I don't think any move they made was good. I felt like they could have done way better. And anybody that knows me, like these guys know, like I'll be quick to, tear my team down and rebuild it if I feel like it's not working. And obviously that's what the Magic needed to do. So you might think, well, if they're going to rebuild and that's what you like to do, like, why do you think this is a loss? My problem is it's not that they're going into a rebuild. My problem is the way they're going about doing it. I guess the Magic did get off to a hot start at the beginning of the season, but obviously that didn't last very long. And I feel like, I don't know why, but I feel like the Magic management went about this the wrong way. I think they were trying to do kind of like what the Thunder have been doing, and accumulating as many draft picks as possible and doing stuff like that. But where the Thunder have done it better, as opposed to what I think with the Magic, is that the Thunder did a lot of that in the offseason when they had a lot more leverage, and I know the Thunder had some better players, which helped them get better assets. But I think with the Magic, it was like, the trade deadline's coming up. We got to get rid of all these people. So it was almost like they just kind of threw them out there and then just took the first offer they got, instead of trying to maybe negotiate with other teams and try to, get something better from another team, or maybe do a 3-team trade or something. They were just kind of like, you'll give us a second rounder for this guy? Okay, we'll take it. Or you'll give us a protected first for this guy? We'll take it. Here, you can have him. And it just didn't make any sense, because between Vucevic, Aaron Gordon, and Evan Fournier, this isn't like a Miami Heat big three or anything like that. But like, these guys are all pretty solid players. And the fact that for Evan Fournier, they only got a player who they aren't even going to keep on the team, and Jeff Teague, I believe it was, and then 2 second-round picks. I mean, that's mind-boggling to me. Like, you couldn't even get a future first for Fournier at least. And then with Vooch, like, the picks they're getting from the Bulls, they're like top 4 protected. Now that the Bulls have gotten better, like, I'm sure the Magic will get those picks, but it's not even a guarantee that they're going to get those picks. Like, you couldn't at least guarantee like an unprotected first for Vucevic, who's been been in All-Star games multiple times. He's a consistent 20 and 10 guy. Like, he's not the greatest center in the league, but he's still pretty good. Like, I felt like they could have got more for Vooch. Like, Aaron Gordon, they got a decent bit of compensation on, but I still, like, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Zach, but wasn't the first round pick they got from that one like not until like 2025 or something like that?
Yeah, I was going to say that it's 2025.
So they're not even going to have that pick for they're not even going to have that pick for 4 more years. So I don't know, man. I felt like the Magic did a horrible job, and they're going to rebuild, and it's going to take time. But I feel like with them, it's going to take even longer than it's going to take the Thunder. So just for me, the Magic as a whole is a huge L here.
I can't disagree. Connor, go ahead and tell us about one trade lost in your eyes.
I will say one that's kind of funny is your voice is like very deep right now, Zach.
I don't know what's happening. I can like hear. I don't know. I think I unplugged something. I don't know.
Okay, I'm glad it really wasn't just me. I'm glad it wasn't just me that noticed that.
I mean, Eric.
Oh, hold on. I'm gonna leave the Skype call and rejoin. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
Connor, you go
anyway,
ahead, man.
yeah. I mean, Eric pretty much covered everything about my one that I was going to talk about, but I guess I'll just mention. I thought out of all the Magic's trades that they made, I feel like the Vucevic one was probably the biggest loss for them, given the fact that they got. Obviously they got 2 first-round picks, but one of them isn't even like if I was the Magic with those picks, I would have gotten like a 2021 and a 2022 rather than a 2021 and a 2023. I don't know. I feel like Vooch having the best year of his career, and you couldn't get like back-to-back first-round picks. You got Wendell Carter Jr., who is going to be, he'll be there. He's kind of just like a backup at best. He's never been a big offensive threat. They already have someone to fill the shoes of Vucevic and Mo Bamba. So, I guess just keeping around for backup reasons. And, obviously they got Otto Porter Jr., but it just seems like they did it at the wrong time. I think, who was it when, Eric, you were talking about how doing stuff, how the Thunder did all their stuff during the off season. The Magic probably should have waited till the off season, especially with Vucevic, because I just think if they had waited to trade him during the offseason, they probably could have gotten a lot more for him. Given he's coming off the best. He's coming off the best year of his career. He's still shows that he's getting a little bit older, but he's still kind of in the prime of his career. So they could have gotten a lot more for him if they had waited till the offseason. So just just an all around complete failure by the Orlando Magic.
Thanks a lot, guys. Hopefully, I sound
Connor,
better now.
I totally forgot that you had Vooch as your thing. I didn't mean to steal your thunder there with the Magic. There, I forgot that you had picked Vooch as your L, but I don't know. I almost kind of got on like a mini rant there and just got going.
Okay. Yeah, but that's gonna wrap this episode up, guys. Thank you to everybody for listening and watching. And next week we will be back with team need. So we're going to be talking about the AFC, and the draft is less than a month away now. So we're going to talk about the AFC teams and what positions those teams need to upgrade at the most. So that should be a lot of fun. And until then, guys, remember, be clutch.
Bye.
See ya.
Peace.